Chair. Welcome, Mr Farrell. Can I just extend my thanks to Australia Post for the great work that you did and the West Australian team around the Fitzroy Crossing post office. We had some problems there in the lead up to Christmas, so thanks very much, and I think I wrote to you about that.
Yes, you did.
I just want to talk briefly about postcodes. This has been a recurring issue for colleagues or coalition colleagues of ours in the House of Representatives, and particularly in Queensland. One of them was gracious enough to give me a timeline that goes back to 2006. You'll be well aware that the issue has been raised constantly in the House of Representatives. There doesn't seem to be much progress being made, and I was hoping that we could do a couple of things this morning briefly. Explain to me how postcodes are allocated, if and on what conditions postcodes might actually change, and then how does the postcode allocation system fit in to the comments you've just made about the changing nature of mail delivery in Australia?
Thank you very much, Senator. In the spirit of transparency, I am not an expert in the postcode
Neither
system.
am I, that's why I'm here. Yep.
But Senator, I can assure you I will take that on notice, all three of your questions, and I will give you a detailed explanation of all of that. But I will say one thing. Mm-hmm. I know postcodes are used for all sorts of other purposes, but they're primarily used by us to operationally allocate an efficient allocation of our staff, particularly our posties and our processing system, so that we can get the letters to somebody's home address. And that system is used for us to internally optimise. Now, the great news is that Australians have adopted these for other purposes and other needs, and that's wonderful. But our primary focus is to deliver the letter service efficiently and effectively according to the Act. And so therefore what we're having right now is just a conflict, it seems to me, between people's desire to want and need them for other purposes versus what I would call our internal purposes. But I can assure you, Senator, that I will give you another explanation, and if you wish as well, I'm happy to meet with you separately with the relevant expert to talk through any of those details if you wish any follow-up on that.
Okay, so explain to me, how do we accommodate for population growth under the postcode allocation system, and does the postcode change as a result of changes in population growth?
Yes, it does.
And
we do sometimes vary and add and change those to reflect that so that we can efficiently allocate the mail system.
So it's not set in stone?
Correct.
Great. On notice, can you let me know what are some examples of how postcodes have been added to? How do you subdivide a postcode? So, for example, here in Canberra, if the postcode is 2600 and you've already allocated 2601, and for argument's sake you wanted to have another postcode for whatever reason, how would you do that?
Okay, we'll have to take that on notice then.
Okay, cool. I was surprised to see some of the examples that my Queensland colleagues shared with me earlier this week. I just want to put them on the record. You're probably very, very familiar with them. So the 4306 postcode, which is an Ipswich suburban postcode, encompasses some 57 localities stretching from the Brisbane federal seat of Ryan through to South Burnett, including localities of Maranoa, Blair, federal seat localities of Maranoa, Blair, Ryan and Wright, with many communities not even sharing a boundary. That seems very big to me, and I'm not quite sure how that fits with your statement about them being efficient means of delivery.
It's a very good example, and I will take that example on board, and then when I give my explanation, maybe we can use this particular postcode to then say, well, how would we explain the answer to that question, Senator? So I will gladly respond.
I'll give you another one on the same, in similar terms. The postcode 4352, which is a Toowoomba-based postcode, is shared by 72 localities across Maranoa, Wright and Groom.
Without knowing the specifics of this particular one you're referring to, what I'm giving you is probably the reason, is that it's a reflection of the volume of work. So, for example, we would take a hub or a postcode area, and we might say in this area, in this delivery centre, we might have 120 staff or 80 staff or 60 staff. And we know how much time they have available, what the street runs are, what the distances they've got to go, and how much mail they'll deliver. And then we will then build a system around what we can and do efficiently. So therefore, I think what I would like to do is to take all those examples of the letter that you have, and maybe then when we respond to you, we can actually use those as examples to explain how the system works, using the ones that you're asking us to use.
The Division 1, Part 3 of the Australian Postal Corporation Act of '89 says that one of the core requirements is to ensure the performance standard for the letter service reasonably meets the social, industrial and commercial needs of the Australian community. Does the current postcode allocation system meet that requirement?
As far as I'm concerned, the postcode allocation is not a requirement. The requirement of us is to deliver the service.
Right, and the
that helps
postcode
meet
is the
those.
means by which you do that.
It's just a means of doing our trade.
Yep, so much of your evidence this morning and generally has been about the changing nature of mail in Australia, people using electronic forms, etc., shift to parcels. How useful is the current postal code allocation system in meeting this rapidly changing environment?
In the future, geocoding is where this is all going to, where you will find a digital delivery addresses developed and very precise systems of measuring where these things are. There is a whole industry that's into this digital means of locating people and places and locations. I think we're going to find when we get to this in the next 2-3 years, our system's going to change. Interestingly, as the letter business declines, as Senator Urquhart was correctly saying, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've been building this parcel business.
Agreed, yep.
And so therefore, the sophistication of our parcel business has to change. For example, I launched last year our innovation activity, and one of the things we're going to trial in 2016 for regional rural customers is with a couple of clients, we're trialling drone drop-off of parcels. Now, the drone doesn't care about the postcode. We've got far more sophisticated means to trial getting to a farmhouse, for example, which could be 10 kilometres from the front street to deliver the package. I know this sounds a bit space age-ish, but
spooky. Even.
It does sound a little bit, but we have to prepare today.
So the carrier pigeon is going to be replaced by the Australia Post drone.
Well, we
It's going to get busy up there, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I have to say that from what's happening around, for example, what we see happening in America and some of the innovations that are occurring over there, especially on the West Coast, to prepare for this digital age, we have to change a lot of how we do business. And if in the next couple of years that changes, and we should review the postcode system.
Now this is important. So have I heard you correctly in saying that the postcode system that we're accustomed to in this country is highly likely to change as we move to sort of greater digital uses like geocode? Is that a correct statement?
No, what I said is that as we prepare for what this change means into the future and what digital technology and data information does, all I'm saying is we have to look at everything that we do internally to optimise ourselves, which includes postcodes, which includes everything, and ask the question, is this meeting the need of the modern customer?
So you are asking the question internally, does the postcode allocation system meet your current needs?
If I'm being very honest, I've never asked that question in the way you've just asked it.
Because that's my job. Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, but what I am saying to you...
These people are being told that a review is not possible. And what I just heard from you is that you're constantly reviewing these things internally to keep pace with change. That's what I heard.
Absolutely,
is that not true?
Senator. You're 100%. There's nothing that's sacrosanct. We have to adapt to the modern world. And if the current postcode system doesn't meet the needs of the new world, then of course it's going to change.
And when will you know that?
I haven't given you a specific time.
No, that's why I asked the question.
I reserve my judgment
when
on
will
that.
You know that?
I don't know the answer to that question, Senator.
That's not sort of good enough, because what I've heard is that you're keeping pace with change, doing a variety of things internally to keep pace with that change. I thought I heard you say that postal code, review of postal code arrangements, etc., was part of that to make sure that you're keeping pace with the business, but you can't tell me anything about that.
Not at this moment.
But you can take it on notice.
But I can take that on notice, thank you.
Okay. So for the members, and they tend to be, I'm happy to be corrected, but they tend to be in Queensland. I've not had any colleagues from states or territories other than Queensland raise this with me. So how would you describe the level of engagement that Australia Post has had with the member for Maranoa, the member for Ryan, etc., around this issue? Because it has been going for a very long time. I don't know.
Senator, I'll come back to you on that.
Great.
But I'm aware that I've been made aware that this has predated me, and that clearly the level of frustration around the Queensland postcode situation. I will look into this, Senator, and let me review what's going on and come back to you regarding what the situation is.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Chair.